So a few weeks back, DeepSeek announced the version 3 model, and the model was almost as good as GPT-4o in a lot of tasks, and Claude 3.5 Sonnet as well. So as you can see from the benchmarks here, this essentially means that it kind of comes very close to all of these closed source models, which you can't have access to unless you use their own platforms. In fact, if you look at the comparison here, you can see that Llama and DeepSeek to some extent are very similar, but DeepSeek v3 is relatively better than Llama 3.1. Obviously, Claude still kind of beats DeepSeek in a bunch of different parameters here, but overall the model, given it's an open source model, does a lot better on the parameters that you would expect it to. The model is from a Chinese company called DeepSeek, and they recently announced R1, which is a model that is better or equivalent to O1 and has reasoning capabilities. So it has performance on par with OpenAI O1, fully open source model, and has technical reports. It is MIT licensed, which means you can actually deploy the model yourself, and you can actually use the model on their platform right now, where you can go to chat.deepseek.com and use this model. If you look at the benchmarks or tests that the model has passed, on the AIME 2024 test, it is better than O1. On the Code Forces, it's relatively lower than O1. On the GPQ Diamond, it's lower than O1, but better than the previous models and O1 Mini. At math, it's better than O1, and on MMLU, it's very close to O1 performance, and on SWE Bench Report, it's better than O1. If you look at the comparisons here when it comes to these open source models, you would notice that the 32 billion parameter model is better than all the other models, scoring 72.6. The 70 billion parameter model is better than all the other models at AIME 2024. Regardless, the best part about the model is that you can actually use this as an open source model and deploy it yourself, or just use this locally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the terminal and I'm going to use our good friend here, Ollama, in order to run this model on our local computer. So all you need to do is look for Ollama R1, and this will open the DeepSeek model that is deployed on Ollama. I absolutely love Ollama because they are very quick when it comes to these deployments, which kind of does help because they are very quick when it comes to all of these deployments. So if you want to clone the 7 billion parameter model, it's 4.7 gigabytes. But if you want to go all the way to 671 billion parameter models, and it's 404 GB, the 70 billion parameter model I think would work for most of the use cases, and it's 43 GB. So you can download it from here. I'm going to stick to the smaller version, and I'm going to be using 7 billion parameter model. We need to first make sure that the Ollama is downloaded in our computers, and I'm going to download by clicking here. You can choose any of these options, and you can download for Mac OS. So I'm going to copy this command and I'm going to open terminal after Ollama is installed. You should see something like this once Ollama is successfully installed. My terminal is open and I pasted this command. It will take some time to download this, and once it's done, this should pop something up like this, and I'm going to say hi, and this will essentially help me communicate with the Ollama model. And you can see there is this new command that says /think. So essentially what I want to do is I want to use this agent with Ollie, which is a social media agent that can automatically generate comments for you in the UI. I want to use DeepSeek R1 with this agent to see the quality of the responses that are generated. And I did go ahead and try out an example where I asked the LLM, if I had 10 apples yesterday, I sold 2 today, how many apples will I have tomorrow? Now, a lot of LLMs would just use some basic logic and answer this question. And in fact, in one of the videos I made for O1, it did answer one of these questions, well, not very smartly. So when I asked this question to R1, it does actually think, which is what I expect of the model, is that I had 10 yesterday, I sold 2 today. Technically, I should have 8 tomorrow, right? But there is no information with respect to the transactions happening today or tomorrow. So unless they plan to sell more or get new apples, the count should remain the same as it is today. This basically means the model is thinking through step by step before it answers the question for you, which is, in my opinion, pretty impressive. And let's see if we can ask some other set of puzzle questions that most closed source models today as well would fail to answer. So now that the capabilities of the model is clear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try this agent with the DeepSeek R1 model. So first I'm going to go back to my terminal and I'm going to say /by to stop the model. And I'm going to say Ollama list in order to get the list of the models I have with me, which essentially says that I have DeepSeek R1 installed along with a bunch of these different models. I'm going to go to the API activation and LLM vendor, and I'm going to choose Ollama here, and I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to Ollie configuration, and I'm going to be adding a custom model, which is DeepSeek R1 latest, and I'm going to save this. All right, so I now have DeepSeek R1 integrated. I'm going to click on congratulate here, which is essentially now going to use Ollama in order to generate this comment. Now, one of the things that I think might happen here is that it will add /think and think in the input of the comment. So I hope that does not happen, but let's go ahead and see what it throws out in the response. I'm just going to refresh this page once and let's find a post to comment on. Let's say this one, this looks good, and I'm going to click on congratulate. So it did generate the response, and it looks like it did add this thinking piece in the response as well, which is not what I want the model to do. So what I can essentially do is I can go into my custom buttons and create a custom button that basically says that don't add the thinking set of steps in the response itself. This kind of helps us understand how the AI generates the response itself, right? Okay, so user wants me to write a disagreement comment for a LinkedIn post in a formal tone. They provided an example reply which is quite structured and concise. First, I need to understand the sample reply they gave. It starts with appreciation, then points out potential criticisms and ends with encouragement. The response mentions content creation being time consuming. I should follow similar structure. Start by acknowledging the post. The user also specified that it should be under 150 characters, and I'll make sure my comment is human-like. Alright, time to draft a response based on Kyle's point, but also add another angle about content being time consuming. Thanks for sharing such an insightful perspective on content marketing. I agree that high quality content is essential, but it can indeed be time consuming. However, the effort invested in creating actually good content pays off. Now, honestly, based on all the responses I've seen, this one is actually very, very good. And I'd want to use more and more of this. But obviously, I don't want this to be a part of my response. Rather, I just want this to be the response. We're going to be shipping an update by default will filter this out from your response. But I think the overall quality of the engagement is definitely improved after this. And I actually want to try out building an AI agent or a general AI agent with the DeepSeek R1 model. That will probably happen later this week. But either ways, I think at this point of time, the model performance on a real world scenario or a use case is actually very good. If you want me to try out one more, I'm going to do this. Instead of disagreement, I'm going to say congratulate, which is, more on the lines of the agreement rather than disagreement. Again, it's going to do the same set of steps. It's going to do some thinking before it generates the response for the post itself, which is completely fine. And it just did that. This is such a great post. Kyle has beautifully captured how content marketing still works when it's actually good, original, unique, shareable, informative, and insightful. One standard example is your service approach, which takes 1 to 6 months to develop but can yield valuable data like Ahrefs SaaS benchmark report. And I think this is good compared to a lot of other open source models that are available right now. Overall, I think this is great for people who are currently using Ollie with Ollama and need O1 quality responses. Wait for us to ship an update to remove the thinking bit, which I think should happen later this week. But overall, I think if you're using Ollama and Ollie, this is an awesome model to use and you should definitely be using it. Either ways, I hope this video adds value to you. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.